Published in 2000, Antonio Negri and Michael Hardt's Empire rapidly became one of the most discussed and controversial works in contemporary political theory. Emerging at the cusp of the 21st century, and it sought to describe and theorize a new global political and economic order that had replaced the older system of imperialism. According to Hardt and Negri, the age of competing nation-states vying for colonial control had ended, and in its place had emerged a decentralized, deterritorialized network of power they call empire. This empire is not a single nation or institution, but a global, all-encompassing system of governance that operates through a combination of political, economic, and cultural mechanisms. Negri, an Italian Marxist philosopher and political activist, brought to the work a deep engagement with autonomous Marxism and post-1968 revolutionary thought. While Hardt, an American literary theorist and political philosopher, contributed perspectives from postmodern theory and critical analysis of globalization. Together, they produced a text that bridges Marxist analysis with post-structuralist theory, drawing on thinkers such as Foucault, Deleuze, and Spinoza. From Imperialism to Empire. Hardt and Negri's central thesis is that the traditional concept of imperialism, where powerful nation-states extend their sovereignty over weaker territories, no longer adequately describes the global order. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, imperialism was characterized by geopolitical rivalries, colonial conquests, and a world divided into spheres of influence. This was the framework famously analyzed by Lenin in his Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. However, the authors argue that the post-World War II era, and especially the late 20th century, saw a shift in the structure of power. The process of decolonization dismantled formal empires, and globalization reconfigured economic and political relations. No single nation-state could claim to dominate the globe unilaterally, not even the United States, despite its military and economic reach. Instead, sovereignty began to take the form of a network of transnational institutions, corporations, and legal frameworks. This diffuse arrangement, comprising bodies like the United Nations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, and multinational corporations, constitutes what Hardt and Negri call empire. Empire is not merely a metaphor for globalization. For the authors, it is a new historical reality with its own logic, institutions, and modes of control. It operates through consensus as much as coercion, producing norms and laws that apply across borders. Its power is deterritorialized in the sense that it is not bound to a specific location or capital. Instead, it exists everywhere, immanent to the global order. Characteristics of empire, Hardt and Negri identify several defining features of empire. 1. Deterritorialization. Unlike older empires that relied on territorial conquest, empire transcends geography. It governs through global markets, transnational legal systems, and cultural flows. Power resides in networks rather than in fixed capitals. 2. A networked structure of sovereignty. Sovereignty is shared and diffused among various actors, nation-states, supranational organizations, corporations, NGOs, and even media conglomerates. While the United States plays a leading role, it is part of a broader configuration rather than the sole hegemon. 3. Biopolitical control. Borrowing from Michel Foucault's notion of biopolitics, Hardt and Negri argue that empire governs life itself, regulating populations, shaping subjectivities, and influencing cultural and social norms. This power operates not only through law and the military, but also through the production and circulation of knowledge, media, and cultural narratives. 4. A postmodern form of power. The authors liken empire to the postmodern condition, decentralized, flexible, and operating through difference rather than uniformity. It integrates diverse cultures and economies while maintaining overarching control. 5. Permanence. Unlike historical empires that expanded and eventually declined, empire is conceived as a permanent, self-sustaining system. It does not have clear boundaries or a center that can be overthrown in a traditional sense. The role of capitalism. At the heart of empire is the global capitalist system, which has evolved into a seamless, integrated economy. Hardt and Negri argue that capitalism has reached a stage where production is no longer confined to the factory, but has expanded to encompass all aspects of life, a condition they call biopolitical production. In this form of capitalism, value is generated through the production of ideas, information, effects, and social relationships, not just material goods. This shift aligns with the rise of what other theorists have called the knowledge economy, or cognitive capitalism. Labor now often involves immaterial work, design, communication, services, and cultural production that operates in a global network. This means that power and control must also function globally, reinforcing the need for the structures of empire. Resistance and the multitude. While Empire offers a critical analysis of global power, it is not a work of despair. Hardt and Negri place significant emphasis on the potential for resistance. Their key concept here is the multitude. The multitude is distinct from the people or the proletariat in classical Marxist theory. It refers to a diverse, pluralistic network of individuals and groups who are connected by their common exploitation under empire, but who retain their singular identities. Unlike the homogeneous working class envisioned in traditional Marxism, the multitude encompasses workers in factories, service industries, migrant laborers, knowledge workers, activists, and marginalized communities worldwide. The multitude resists empire not through seizing state power as in classical revolutions, but through the creation of alternative networks, forms of cooperation, and spaces of autonomy. Resistance emerges from within empire's own global circuits, using its technologies and communication systems against it. The authors envision the multitude as capable of building a democratic, decentralized global order, what they sometimes call the counter-empire. Theoretical foundations. Empire draws on an eclectic mix of intellectual traditions. Marxism, particularly autonomist and post-operaismo currents, which focus on the self-activity of workers and the autonomy of social movements from traditional political parties and unions. Post-structuralism, concepts from Michel Foucault, biopolitics, disciplinary power, Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, rhizomes to territorialization, and Jacques Derrida, deconstruction, inform their vision of a decentralized, networked world order. Spinoza, his ideas about immanence, power, and the collective capacity of human beings underpin the author's notion of the multitude. Post-colonial theory, acknowledging the end of formal colonialism, but emphasizing the persistence of global hierarchies in new forms. This theoretical hybridity allows Hardt and Negri to bridge the gap between economic and cultural analyses of globalization, treating both as interconnected. Criticisms and debates. Empire has been both influential and controversial. Supporters praise its ambitious synthesis of political theory and its attempt to grapple with the realities of globalization in a post-Cold War world. The book's emphasis on decentralization and the creative capacities of the multitude has inspired activists in the global justice movement and beyond. However, critics have raised several objections. 1. Overemphasis on novelty. Some argue that the authors exaggerate the extent to which imperialism has been replaced by empire, noting that nation-states, especially powerful ones like the United States, China, and Russia, still play a dominant role in shaping global politics. 2. Lack of concrete political strategy. While the concept of the multitude is inspiring, critics say it remains vague and offers little guidance for practical political action. How exactly the multitude might organize itself to challenge empire remains underdeveloped. 3. Technological optimism. The book sometimes suggests that new communication technologies inherently favor decentralized democratic organization. Critics argue this underestimates how easily such technologies can be co-opted by states and corporations. 4. Neglect of material inequalities. Some scholars contend that empire focuses too much on immaterial labor in the knowledge economy, underplaying the continued exploitation of physical labor, especially in the global south. 5. Abstract language. The dense theoretical style of empire has been criticized for being inaccessible to non-academic audiences, potentially limiting its political reach. Legacy and influence. Despite criticisms, empire has had a lasting impact on political theory and activism in the early 21st century. It was widely read during the anti-globalization protests of the late 1990s and early 2000s, and its concepts have influenced debates about the nature of power, resistance, and democracy in a globalized world. The book is also the first in a trilogy, followed by Multitude, War and Democracy in the Age of Empire, 2004, and Commonwealth, 2009. These subsequent works further develop the idea of the multitude, explore the relationship between war and global order, and propose a vision of a post-capitalist society based on the commons. In academia, Empire has been a touchstone for courses in political theory, sociology, globalization studies, and cultural analysis. Activists have drawn on its language to frame struggles against neoliberalism, environmental destruction, and authoritarianism as interconnected battles within the overarching system of empire. Conclusion. Antonio Negri and Michael Hardt's Empire represents one of the most ambitious attempts to theorize the global order at the turn of the millennium. By declaring the end of the age of imperialism and the emergence of a new, deterritorialized form of sovereignty, the authors challenge both traditional Marxist and liberal understandings of power. Empire, as they conceive it, is a networked biopolitical system that governs life on a planetary scale. Yet within this system lies the potential for transformation. The multitude, diverse, creative, and connected, embodies the possibility of constructing a new global democracy. While the book leaves many questions unanswered, particularly regarding practical strategies, its synthesis of theory and its provocative rethinking of sovereignty, labor, and resistance continue to spark debate. 2 decades after its publication, Empire still resonates, not because it offers a definitive map of global politics, but because it dares to envision a politics that transcends national boundaries, embraces diversity, and confronts power in all its diffuse postmodern forms. In doing so, it invites readers to think and act on a planetary scale.